You know, in California, we have had this ambition to go all electric. By 2035, all the cars sold are going to be electric,
Right.
zero emission. You made a documentary that's actually challenging the narrative that these are good for the planet. Can you tell us what is this documentary about?
Well, I was approached by Impactful Pictures to explore this. I knew nothing at all about EVs at the very beginning. I'd never even driven one before. I just kind of assumed that they were better for the planet than gas-powered cars because everybody seemed to think that and suggest that. The film, by the way, is not about climate change. However you feel about climate change, I have my own views. If you're on the extreme side, as is Joe Biden, who says climate change is an existential threat to the planet, or you're on the other side that says it's much ado about nothing, or somewhere in the middle, it really isn't about that. However you feel about that issue, the documentary explores whether or not a EV is better for the planet than a gas-powered car. And again, as I said at the beginning, I assumed that they were. The documentary starts out, CMAC, by going to a auto show here in LA, one of the biggest auto shows in the world. And I learned about the technology. The technology is stunning. It is amazing what they've done with these EVs. As one of my pundits in the documentary said, it's a computer with 4 wheels, seats, and a steering wheel. And it is just amazing, particularly the self-driving technology. About 40,000 Americans lose their lives on the road every year in America. And almost all of it is because of driver error. This would almost completely eliminate that. One expert suggested that if everybody had self-driving cars, the percentage of deaths could fall almost 90%. Because humans are humans. They're tired, they're angry, there's road rage, they've been drinking, they're doing drugs, who knows what's going on. Distracted by music, by books on tape, by individuals in the car. Computer's not distracted. So that's one huge benefit. And they're fast and they're quiet. And the technology changing all the time, so just as your computer can be updated, the car can be updated. The downside of that is that, like a computer, it can be hacked and can be controlled. And the people that sell the car can presumably get information from you, about you, could even possibly take control of the car. So that's also one of the downsides. The other thing I learned is that it takes fossil fuel generated energy to make an EV. You can't make one with solar powered energy. It takes an EV produced by fossil fuel to exist, and then to transport it, to get it to the dealership, and then, of course, to charge it. Most electricity is generated by fossil fuel energy, not by wind and solar. So when you look at all the things that go into making an EV and transporting an EV, the carbon footprint probably isn't any smaller than a gas-powered car really is. Over time, it probably is cheaper to operate. It's more expensive to buy up front. It depreciates probably a little bit more right now, although that's changing. The insurance and the maintenance, it might be a little more expensive, although that is changing. So overall, operating the EV over the long haul probably might be a little less expensive. One wonders, CMAC, whether there would be a market for it if it weren't for tax credits and other incentives that state and local governments give people to buy them and to manufacture them. But then there's the other part, the ugly part, is the stuff that goes into the battery. It's called lithium or cobalt or nickel. They're called minerals. Some people call them rare earth minerals. And they have to be mined. And they're either mined in places that China controls or in China itself, particularly something called nickel. Nickel is mined in places like the Republic of the Congo by children who are pressed into labor by slave labor. They make $1 or $2 a day, and kids literally, when I say kids, I mean 8, 10, 12-year-old boys and girls are using their bare hands to get this stuff out of the ground. It's toxic. Over the long haul, it probably causes cancer. And I think most people who purchase EVs have no idea that the stuff that goes into the battery comes from places like that. Also, the computer chips that go into the battery come from China, which makes China wealthier. China is our number one adversary. It makes us even more dependent upon China for the chips and for the minerals that go into the battery. So you need to ask yourself from a foreign policy standpoint and a national security standpoint, do we really want to enrich China more by buying more EVs? So there are all sorts of other considerations to look at. and mandating the purchase of a EV by the year 2035, which is what Gavin Newsom said he wanted to do. By the way, he's pulled back from that a little bit. Other states have embraced it. He's pulled back because he wants to run for president in 2028. And he knows that the majority of Americans don't like the idea of being force-fed an EV. So he's backed up a little bit. But up front, they cost more than gas-powered cars that are the same size. So you're telling poorer people that they must spend more to purchase a vehicle that they may or may not even want. So look at everything, go all told, is an EV better for the planet? The good, the bad, and the ugly I look at. And by the end of it, my conclusion is, just from a humanitarian standpoint, and just from the idea that it makes us even more dependent upon China, I wonder whether or not people that own them or thinking about buying them are looking at everything.
When you were doing this documentary, you said in the beginning you thought that they are better for the planet. What was the pivotal point that you realized this is worse?
Well, when I talked to people that were in the auto industry and people that are in the mining industry, and they were telling me all the stuff that goes into an EV and how it really is manufactured and transported, then it occurred to me that while the carbon footprint may not be visible here, it's somewhere else. It's still there. It still takes fossil fuel generated energy to make it. So we may not see it, but it's still there. And then you have to maintain it. The other thing too is the batteries have a shorter shelf life than the battery that goes into a gas-powered car. And all this material that's in it is toxic. If you bury it under the ground, it leaks, and it could threaten the underground water storage. There was a front page article in the LA Times, of all places, about 2 or 3 years ago that talked about what they're doing with solar panels, because they also have a shelf life. And you put them in the ground, they leak. Well, the batteries are just as toxic, if not more so, and they leak. We've had fires out here in California recently, and people that own EVs have seen their batteries explode because of the fires. So these are the kinds of things I think a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to. What do you do when the battery is spent? And the battery is spent faster than the battery that goes into a gas-powered car.
We're going to start manufacturing millions of tons of batteries, tens of millions of tons of batteries. And at the end of a decade or so, they really will be garbage, because either better ones will be around or those ones will be worn out. What do you do? If I were a betting man, and I'm not, I guess, I would bet most of them will go to landfill.
The reason I guess I assumed that putting them in the land was not good, because I remember reading an article
Chemicals will
on
leak
the
out.
front page of the LA Times, about solar panels, chemicals leaking out, toxic materials, threatening the underground water supply.
So solar panels, the glass, the cover solar panels is considered toxic waste because it contains metals to stabilize the glass from its exposure to UV light. The windmill's blades are non-recyclable plastic. So one small wind farm has more non-recyclable plastic in it than all the world's plastic straws combined. A big wind farm has more plastic you can't recycle than all the world's plastic bottles combined. But nobody cares about that.